Hello and welcome to Coffee with Cafe. I'm Chef Kurt Bachman and I serve as the president of Auguste Escoffier School of Culinary Arts. Escoffier is proud and honored to partner with Cafe in hosting these Trends presentations, which help fulfill Cafe's mission of linking the food service classroom with the food service industry. Auguste Escoffier School of Culinary Arts is a learning community, and our goal is to help prepare students for exciting and satisfying careers in the culinary and hospitality industries. We do this by providing professional programs which are focused on sustainability, farm-to-table philosophy, and business operations. Students who choose to study with Escoffier are offered an accredited education through the flexibility of 2 residential campuses or online programs. So thank you again for joining us today, and please enjoy this week's presentation.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Welcome. My name is Gustavo Arellano, just like that slide said. I am a columnist for the Los Angeles Times, but for the purposes of today, I am the author, and this is true, by the way, I'm the author of a book called Taco USA, How Mexican Food Conquered America. So I am going to give you, I am the authority on Mexican food in the United States, past, present, and future. And so I'm going to give you the history of a food trend maybe that you've never heard about, but you've definitely eaten before, called Cal-Mex cuisine. Cal-Mex cuisine, what is it? Well, let me pull up my PowerPoint presentation and we will go from there. So share screen. Here it is. Cal-Mex, a little known history of a big food trend with Gustavo Arellano. That is me as a syndicated host who created the term. I'm going to take my face out of it. So before we talk about Cal-Mex, we need to talk about the setting of Cal-Mex. Obviously, Cal-Mex is, and of course, is brought by real California milk, the best milk in the world, and all the dairy products. With Mexican food, hold on, let me just move this up here. Here we go. Cal-Mex comes from Mexican food, duh, because there's a Mex part of it. And when we talk about Mexican food, of course, we're talking about one of the most popular foods in the United States, and increasingly going all around the world. And as I argue in my book, Taco USA, this is how it's been in the United States for almost 150 years at this point, especially since the moment Americans knew there was something called Mexican food, we've wanted it. We've eaten it. We've written about it. Nowadays, we post photos on the gram, on Instagram. We see videos on it, television shows, all of it. And it's not just the food anymore. Always as part of it, it's the ingredients as well. We want the chilies, we want the spices, we want the tequila, we want the beer, and also increasingly, slowly but surely, we want the dairy that's associated with Cal-Mex. And now this is, though, an uphill battle to try to get people to understand that dairy is a part of Mexican food, and a wonderful part of it, because there is something that has been blocking dairy's ascension in the Mexican food pantheon in the United States for a long time. And its name is Tex-Mex food. And we all know what Tex-Mex food is. It's very delicious. Your combo platters, you get, it's like the number 5 or the number 12. It's either 2 enchiladas and a taco, a chile relleno, and maybe a chalupa. Then you have the side of beans and rice and that pointless salad that no one eats. But all of it is covered in yellow or orange goop, melted cheese. And hey, I love melted cheese just as much as anyone else, but that stereotype has influenced what people think about Mexican food in the United States. And because of that Tex-Mex goop, as I say here in the slide, dairy just doesn't get nearly enough love when we talk about Mexican food. And that's a darn shame, because there's so much there's so much great with dairy that is part of Mexican food. And so the grand ambassador, the people who will teach you, or the trend that will teach you the glories of dairy in Mexican food, I go do that, is Cal-Mex. So what on earth is Cal-Mex cuisine? At its very basic definition, Cal-Mex cuisine is how Mexican food has manifested itself in California. And in Mexico, of course, sometimes people try to think that Mexican food is all one and the same, but it's not. There's different regions. Just like in the United States, you have Southern cooking, you have New England cooking, cooking in the Pacific Northwest, you have barbecue, all these different styles. So similarly in Mexico and in Mexican food, you're going to have different styles of Mexican food. So in California, you're going to have the CALMEX. So, at its basis, at its most basic, CALMEX, the iconic dishes, we're going to talk about some of them in a little bit, but briefly, there's going to be an emphasis on beef because, well, we'll get to that history in a little bit, but there's also going to be that emphasis on dairy, and that deals with the history of California. Right here, you see a legend of CalMex cuisine, a flour tortilla made from milk from a restaurant called El Cholo Cafe, which is in Los Angeles. It's the second oldest Mexican restaurant in the United States. It was started in 1924, so my math's bad, 97 years young, I think, maybe 96. There's also a little side of butter because the best flour tortillas have butter. So next up. And so when it comes to CalMex, one of the foundational ingredients, I already talked about carne asada and flour tortillas as well, but it also has dairy. We are in love with cheese in California in general, of course, from Sonoma County, Humboldt Fog and all that. But when it comes to Mexican food, we also have our own traditions as well. Basically, any great Mexican dish is just going to have a little side of dairy. Sometimes it manifests itself as cheese. Sometimes it manifests itself as crema, which we'll get to in a little bit. Sometimes it's a combination of both. Right here, you have one of my favorite breakfast dishes of all time, chilaquiles. Think of like breakfast nachos. In other words, it's the same exact idea. You fry corn tortillas fresh, and then you put cheese on it. But instead of yellow goop like nachos, which again, I love nachos, here you have some crema, a drizzle of crema, and a sprinkle of cotija cheese. I will explain all of them. And then of course you have the sauce. Oh my God, I need chilaquiles today. Actually, my wife makes very good chilaquiles. CalMex cuisine, even though the term, I take full credit. I coined the term for Taco USA back in 2012, but the dishes themselves, they have spread across the United States for decades. And so in this sense, CalMex has definitely, and yes, please put in your questions. I will answer them at the very end of this conversation. CalMex's contributions to Mexican food across the United States, but we also carry the dairy. So here you have an iconic dish, hard shell tacos, which a lot of people now say like, oh, that's not really Mexican food. That's fake Mexican food. No. These tacos come from a restaurant called Meat La Cafe in San Bernardino. All these, like this bad photo is mine. You can tell which are the professional ones and which are mine. Meat La Cafe was a restaurant that Glenn Bell of Taco Bell infamy got the idea to become a millionaire based off of tacos. And if you've been to Taco Bell, look, I'm a Del Taco fan. It's a chain in California that's better when it comes to fast food, Mexican. Taco Bell's okay. I just prefer Del Taco. But you have the hard shell Taco Bell taco. It's whatever. Now, when you eat it fresh, oh my God. So they fry these tortillas fresh, ground beef inside with mashed potatoes. Then you have that rainbow. You have shredded cabbage there. You have the red tomatoes. And of course, that glorious cheddar cheese from California. Notice it is not a goop. It is intact. It is shredded, of course. And it is absolutely amazing. So the reason why then so many people associate hard shell tacos with cheese is because of CalMex food. And also, and we'll get to some of the other dishes as well right now. Why should you care about CalMex food? And why should you care about dairy's relationship with CalMex? Because it is a culinary leader. CalMex is emblematic of the future of Mexican food in the United States. I talk about this in my book. For the first, I would say, 100 years of Mexican food in the United States, it was Tex-Mex that was the influencer. It was Tex-Mex that was leading in terms of innovations. But since the late 1960s, it has been these trends of CalMex, the food, the taco truck, the burrito. And we'll talk to some of those trends as well. Also, let's not forget, folks, you're probably seeing from all across the United States, but California is a prophet when it comes to not just food trends, but trends in general. As California goes, so goes the rest of the United States in all sorts of things, in culture and politics and economy. We are an innovation machine from Silicon Valley up in Central and Northern California to Hollywood, of course. And of course, when it comes to food, from Asian food, from Mexican food, and now with CalMex, people follow our trends. So if you care about food, you're going to be paying attention to what CalMex does. And again, what CalMex does, a lot of it has to deal with dairy. So signature CalMex dishes. Two of my favorite ones, of course, I have to start quesadillas. That's actually probably my favorite dish of all time. If just in case you don't know, quesadilla is going to be a corn or flour tortilla. Sometimes two of them with cheese. Sometimes it's folded, but it's going to have melted cheese. Enchiladas, you're going to get a corn tortilla. You dip it in a sauce, then you roll it up. Sometimes you melt the cheese. Sometimes you don't. It depends on taste. I personally like my quesadillas with Monterey Jack. And of course, Monterey Jack is part of the California Dairy Hall of Fame. I don't know if that actually exists, but Monterey refers to the city of Monterey in California. What I love about Monterey Jack on quesadillas is it's a mild flavor with enough, it's a mild flavor, but it has flavor, And also I love the melting point on it. It doesn't melt super fast. It doesn't melt super slow. It melts just like Goldilocks would like, just right. Next up, Café de Hoya and other hipster caffeine finds. So as food trends go, one of the big food trends that's starting to bubble up in Southern California is Mexican-style coffee. The most iconic example is going to be Café de Hoya. Café de Hoya is going to be cinnamon-laced coffee. That's how they drink it in Mexico. Café de Hoya translates as coffee from the pot. And other hipster caffeine fiends, I actually don't drink much coffee, but I do drink some of the other stuff like the teas, like cinnamon tea would be canela. And all of these are going to have, of course, you need your cream, your heavy duty cream or whatever to be able to give it that just like that sweetness that it deserves. Sometimes also you could drizzle some condensed milk, evaporated milk, all sorts of things that just bring it up. Young baristas are starting to do this because, of course, Southern California is increasing, it has a big Latino population. And those Latinos are like, hey, I drink coffee. I want to do my thing as well, and my twist. Another dish, fish tacos. So fish tacos entered the United States in the 1980s in Southern California from Baja California. Ensenada-style tacos. And they have slowly spread across the country. I'm always surprised where I remember I was in small town in Tennessee years ago. And there was, it wasn't even a Mexican restaurant. It was during a yard sale, and they were selling fish tacos. I'm like, cool, like I gotta taste this, and they were good. So fish tacos, sometimes they're seared. The tacos are the fish are seared. Sometimes they're fried, but almost always they are gonna include dairy. They are gonna include the two icons of dairy when it comes to fish tacos is gonna be cotija cheese. So cotija cheese is gonna be like a powdered cheese. It's a little granules, sometimes a little bit bigger, sometimes not, but it's going to be salty. It's going to add some like saltiness that really brings out the flavor of the fish, but then it's going to be tempered with crema. So crema is going to be the Mexican version of sour cream, except it's a little bit saltier. And this might sound contradictory, but the flavor is thicker, but it's like a liquid. You could drizzle crema, like you get crema and you drizzle it. Unlike sour cream where, you get a scoop and you sort of spread it. With crema, you drizzle it all around. So that's what fish tacos need to really bring it up. And oh man, fish tacos are perfect for a summer day. And of course, burritos. We all love burritos. Burritos first came into the United States in the 1950s through California. The grand ambassadors of burritos across the country was the Chipotle chain, which technically came from Denver, but the type of burritos that Chipotle makes actually are based on the mission-style burritos of San Francisco. And then also just your classic, gas station frozen burrito, your bean and cheese or whatever. They're always going to have cheese. Here, this is one of the most famous burritos in the burrito world, the bean and cheese burrito from Alan B's burrito stand in Boyle Heights. The cheese you're going to use, cheddar cheese. You need that sharpness of cheddar to be able to stand up against the earthiness and the hardiness of those beans. So delicious burrito there if you're ever in Boyle Heights. Another one, I know I keep saying my favorites. If you could tell, like most of my favorite Mexican dishes involve cheese. Chile rellenos, just in case you don't know, you're going to need like a poblano pepper, a thick green chili pepper with a little bit of spice. So you stuff it. Chile relleno literally means stuffed chili. And the traditional stuffing is going to be the cheese. With a chile relleno, you want a little bit something sharper than Monterey Jack. Like this is where you get to Mexican style cheeses, which we're going to get to in a little bit. But like a Mexican style cheddar is going to be the perfect thing to go with it. You stuff them, then you fry them in the light egg batter. Absolutely delicious. And then now what you're also seeing with CALMEX food is, because California has always been a drawing point for Mexican migration, you're starting to see new, like lowercase new Mexican dishes entering the CalMex pantheon. So here we're talking about regional Mexican dishes. In other words, there's different migration patterns coming in from Mexicans across Mexico. And so they're bringing their own signature dishes from their region. So 3 quick examples that use dairy: tacos gobernadores. It's going to be a shrimp taco from the Pacific state of Sinaloa, basically a quesadilla, but with chipotle crema inside of it. You're going to have a tlayuda. Tlayudas are, imagine a humongous tostada, except smeared with black bean paste and then covered in what's called quesillo, which is a Oaxacan style cheese. Think of mozzarella. That comes from the state of Oaxaca. And what you see here, alambres. Alambres translates as wires in Spanish, but it's going to be basically your mix of meats. Like sometimes, usually it's like ham, bacon, and then say carne asada, chopped up with sauteed vegetables. And then all of it is covered in quesillo, in this Oaxacan style cheese. And so when you stretch it out, it's like, it looks like, telephone wires pulling all over. It's absolutely delicious. They're in California right now, mostly in the United States. But again, it's going to start spreading across the United States in the next couple of years. Just you wait. And on top of Cal-Mex cuisine, you will now have its younger brother, Alta California cuisine. Alta California cuisine is high-end Mexican food. And it was the phenomenon originally started actually in Baja California, but it's, Baja California and then Alta California, which we call the state of California. It's basically the same region. So you had classically trained Chicanos, Mexican Americans who went to Escoffier, who went to CIA, the Culinary Institute of America. They went off and they wanted to be chefs. Then they go work and, they get trained classically. Then they come back and they're like, you know what? I want to use these techniques, but use it with Mexican food. And so that's what they've done. And in Southern California, it's been an explosion over the past, I would say, 7 years. Some of the famous people, Ray Garcia used to have a restaurant called Broken Spanish. Wes Avila used to have a restaurant called Guerrilla Tacos in Los Angeles. And you'll also have Carlos Salgado of Taco Maria, who you see this quesadilla, that's him, but we'll get to it in a little bit. Really quickly, a predecessor to Alta California cuisine was the Southwestern cuisine movement of the 1980s. If there's any old timers out there like me, you might remember during the 1980s, it seemed almost every Mexican restaurant was doing more new Mexican food. They had agave plants outside. They had, statues of howling coyotes, and then they would have silhouettes on the wall of Coco Pelli, the fertility god of the American Southwest, who it looks like he has dreadlocks and is playing his nose like a clarinet. Well, that was only a trend for a couple of years, then died out. Alta California, again, as the guy who wrote the book on Mexican food, with CalMex, these are trends are going to continue forever and ever more. Example of Alta California cuisine, of course, you're going to have this quesadilla de champiñones, which is a mushroom quesadilla. But what you see right there is also the little yellow with green, that's flor de calabaza, squash blossoms. Carlos Salgado makes his own blue corn tortillas and uses, it doesn't look like quesillo traditionally, so I'm not sure what cheese he uses, but the point is he uses cheese. Another example of Alta California, this is actually a trend that's all over the United States right now, birria. Birria is actually a goat stew, but the trend in the United States has been birria, so goat stew, but prepared with beef instead. And oh my God, this is all, it's interesting because this trend has been around for 40 years, but only went viral in the past 5 years. And one of the big, and people love it because it's really good, but it's also the redness of it, the colors that go with it. It just makes it so perfect for Instagram. And the big day, and you can find birria on anything, birria ramen, birria pizza, birria tacos, burritos, but one that people especially love, quesadilla. So just a quesadilla with birria. And it actually gets so crazy sometimes that people, instead of a corn tortilla, they'll get melted cheese. They make it into their own taco shell. So they imagine a cheese taco, like a taco shell made entirely of fried cheese. And then they put more cheese and then the birria. It is super freaking good. Picaditas, going back to regional Mexican cuisine, that still hasn't really gone outside of the United States, but a picadita is basically going to be a thick disc of masa, smear it with bean paste, kind of like a tlayuda, but not toasted. It's cooked. Then you have also dairy. There you're gonna have a sprinkle of cotija and also just a tad bit of crema. It's a really hearty dish. But again, they're starting to become more and more popular in specifically Los Angeles and in Orange County, where I'm based. But you're going to start seeing it elsewhere as well. I actually saw in Kentucky because Veracruz comes from the state of, Veracruz, I'm flipping it. Picaditas originally came from the state of Veracruz. Well, there's a lot of people from Veracruz and Kentucky. So it's slowly starting to spread. In California dairy, you also see it, or just dairy in general, but specifically California dairy, you're starting to see in other Latin American foods. Central American cooking, they love their dairy as well. There you see on the left-hand side a pupusa, which is gonna be, it's a delicious dish, and it's slowly starting to become trendy. It's stuffed with cheese, and you also put a crema with it. Salvadorans tend to use a saltier cheese than Mexicans. Mexican ice cream right in the center, that's a popsicle, a paleta de leche. So it's a milk ice cream, milk ice cream, a popsicle. Here, I think it's like Fruity Loops or something. That comes from a paleteria in Anaheim called Tocumo, which is really delicious. You're starting to see Mexican ice cream chains explode all across the United States. So a lot of them, they have fruit flavors, but they mix it up with milk, which is super good, and also these paletas as well. And this has been a huge, huge trend over the past 20 years. And this is the important thing to remember when it comes to CALMEX cuisine: Mexican cheeses. So that I took that picture. It was a cheese, a Mexican style cheese from where my parents are from in Zacatecas. So one of the exciting things that CALMEX has seen over the past 40 years has been, it's been this birthplace really of Hispanic style cheeses. And what do I mean by Hispanic style cheeses? So I'm not sure if you folks know, but you cannot import Mexican cheeses into the United States for commercial sales. I don't know the reason behind that, but you just can't. You can't bring in cheeses. So my family, we would always bring cheese, but customs only allows you, like, I think two cheese wheels per people. And this has been like this forever. So what does California dairy makers and dairy producers do? They start to mimic those exact same flavors. And this is over the past 40 years. They've made a multi-million-dollar industry out of it. And so some of those Hispanic style cheeses that you're starting to see increasingly more in supermarkets. Asadero, that was the this orange cheese right there. So it's going to be a Mexican style cheddar cheese, really sharp. Queso Menonita, it can be sharp. It's a slightly softer flavor. Sometimes it's known as queso chihuahua, great for melting. Asadero has a higher, it's harder to melt, but you can use it as quesadillas as well. We talked about queso cotija. A criollo cheese is going to be a softer cheese. Think of it as a brie. So it's really good on toast, for sandwiches. Requesón is going to be a ricota style cheese. So perfect for salads, for soups, dips or whatnot. Queso Oaxaca we talked about as well. Literally like mozzarella, they sell it in a ball, then you pull it out in string. All of them are being made in California. Same thing with crema. And California is the leading producer of Hispanic style cheeses because, again, we are the birthplace of CALMEX. The milk, the milk can only be drank as milk so much, right? You turn into crema, you turn into all these other products. So I guarantee you, if wherever you are in the United States, they're going to have Mexican style cheeses there. The producer is going to be California. The best ones, at least, are going to be California. And now we're done with the end of the presentation. Well, not just yet. We have 4 quick facts about CALMEX, and then we'll get to your questions. Number 1, Gustavo Arellano coined the term. Please cite me wherever you use it. That said, people still don't know what CALMEX cuisine is, what the term is, but you now do. I, as the creator of CALMEX, the term for CALMEX food, I now anoint all of you the ambassadors of CALMEX cuisine. Please spread the gospel around the world, and please remind folks the importance of dairy when it comes to CALMEX cuisine. The California dairy industry has been here for 251 years. Hence, it's the foundation for CALMEX. When the Spaniards came into California in the 1770s, they brought cows and they brought cattle with them. They needed their carne asada, they needed their beef, but they also needed their milk. And so from there, you have the foundational points. And then number 4, of course, CALMEX honors dairy. Tex-Mex doesn't. I say this as probably the biggest fan of Tex-Mex cuisine who has no family or no ties whatsoever to California. I'm the one who wrote the book on Mexican food in the United States. When it comes to dairy with Mexican food in the United States, CALMEX is the grand ambassador. So I am now going to get out this, and I am going to stop the share so you can see my face now. Ha ha ha. And now I'm going to get to your questions. So, okay, will you be sharing the slideshow with the attendees? David Ivy Soto asked. Cafe is actually going to put this up on YouTube, so that's going to be really cool. So you'll be able to see this later on. And please, folks, if you have any other questions, now's the time to put them in. And David also asked, what is the name of your book? Perhaps I missed it when you mentioned it. It's called Taco USA: How Mexican Food Conquered America. You can buy it at Amazon. You can buy it at your independent bookstores. It's out there. It's a good book. Not just because I wrote it, but has a lot of information for sure. And then, yeah, anonymous attendee says California cheeses have very high safety requirements. Cheeses from other countries often don't make those standards. About 30 plus years ago, there was a mass outbreak of illness in California on cheeses imported from Mexico. That is absolutely true. And that's why it's important then to, if you want your Mexican style cheeses, you buy them from California makers, because this is the place. I'm not going to name any companies because, you know, I don't want some people to be upset that I didn't name them. But let's just say we have a lot of the innovators when it comes to Mexican style dairy right here in California, because, hey, CALMEX food. Any other questions? Right now is the time to chat them. But thank you for those of you who have answered them. Sub Adams Weiner says Humboldt Fog and Point Reyes Blues are two of the best cheeses in the world. Hey, best cheese in the world, California milk, right? Haha. And then, then Adam also asked, Monterey Jack was created by a man named Jack in the hills above Monterey. You can actually take a beautiful hike where it was created. Definitely worth a visit. I got to go there because I'm a cheese fiend, especially when it comes to California cheeses, you know, and also just those Mexican style cheeses. Okay, folks, this is the last time for you to ask questions. I'm going to do the countdown. Going once. Going twice. I'm going to just pop up the Q&A one more time. You are all shy today. And actually, you're not shy. Thank you, David. Thank you, Anonymous. And thank you, Adam. Oh, one final question. Is corn authentic, Stephen Wells? Corn tortillas are definitely authentic. The very first corn tortillas ever, or very first tortillas ever created was corn tortillas. And from there, the Spaniards and everyone else went off and tried to make their cheeses. And Kareen Linton asks, or says at the end, and we'll end it with this. Thank you so much. Great presentation. Oh, one more question. Now the questions start coming up, of course. Anonymous attendee asks, what do you think of El Indio in San Diego? It's a very good restaurant. Anyone who wants to ask me any more questions, find me on social. Well, email me. My email is so easy to remember. Mexican with glasses. So me, Mexican with glasses @gmail.com. Thank you so much, folks, for thank you, Cafe. Thank you all for attending. Have a great weekend. I am now ending what I had to say. Thank you.